Malcolm Gladwell. Celeste Sloman for the New York Times. You just started Season 3 of your podcast, Revisionist History, which explores, as you put it, the overlooked and the misunderstood. What's the most widely misunderstood event in history? Oh, my God. I have no idea. If I knew that, I'd do an episode on it. I think that the premise of the show is that everything is misunderstood in some way, and that there is great virtue in coming to a subject late. In a media culture that is so obsessed with being first, I would like to be last. Have you received any feedback on your podcast voice? I find it to be a very soothing one. I've heard I have a soothing voice, and that pleases me greatly. I owe it all to my mother. My mother has a fantastic, low, calming voice. She is a therapist and has a great therapist voice. I am now profiting from that genetic inheritance. Are there certain ideas that you find yourself drawn to again and again? For example, you've used the threshold model of collective behavior to explain both school shootings and why basketball players don't shoot free throws underhand. I like ideas that absolve people of blame. That's the most consistent theme in all of my work. I don't like blaming people's nature or behavior for things. I like blaming systems and structures and environments for things. Why do you not want to blame individuals? I've thought about this a lot, and I have no idea. I don't know where it comes from. I don't believe in prisons. I don't believe in, you don't believe in prisons? I think a very, very small number of people should be in prison for a short period of time. I would release 95% of prisoners if I had the chance. I mean, prison is an idea that was invented a couple thousand years ago. How many other social policy ideas from back then do we still use? Not a lot. Do you have any hope that a solution to the rise in mass shootings can be found? No. Ever. I mean, it may die out on its own, but nothing we're doing is going to make much difference. It has a life of its own now, and it's fed by social currents that are beyond our control. We're not going to take away the guns, are we? So, I'm not terribly optimistic. Your critics argue that your ideas are simplistic or over-reliant on anecdotal evidence. Is that something you've taken to heart and tried to improve on? Of course I rely on anecdotal evidence and simplify things. That's what it means to be a popular writer. In some sense, that criticism is not a criticism. It's a description. Malcolm Gladwell is a staff writer for The New Yorker, the author of several books and the host of the podcast Revisionist History. Age, 54. Occupation, journalist. Hometown, Elmira, Ontario. 11,976. The number of hours Donald Trump has been president as of noon EDT. On June 3rd. It's certainly meant as a criticism. Then it's a little bit baffling. It's simply people saying that my writing is different from academic writing, which is absolutely the case. There are times, though, when people have said, look, if your job is to popularize academic ideas, then you need to be careful about reflecting the full diversity of opinion within academia. You can't say, science says X, when actually science says X, Y, and Z, and that I've taken to heart. That is a good criticism. You grew up in Canada, but you've been living in the United States since 1984. Why not bite the bullet and become a U.S. citizen? Why should I? I still prefer Canada to the U.S. I know I don't live there, but conceptually, I consider myself a Canadian. I like being identified as an outsider. You're famous for promoting the idea that 10,000 hours of practice are needed before somebody can achieve greatness. Donald Trump now has well over 10,000 hours under his belt as president, if you include golf. Do you think the rule applies to the presidency? Well, remember, it's not 10,000 hours of any practice. It's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, which is focused practice, where you are actively figuring out what you are bad at and seeking to improve at it. And you don't think President Trump is doing that? I'm Canadian. I don't weigh in on American politics. Interview has been condensed and edited. Sign up for our newsletter to get the best of the New York Times Magazine delivered to your inbox every week. A version of this article appears in print on June 3, 2018, on page MM62 of the Sunday magazine with the headline, "Malcolm Gladwell likes things better in Canada."